Are you a baby cow? You don't look like one. Moo.
What's wrong with dairy?
But calcium. So what's the purpose of dairy? The purpose of dairy is quite simple. It's the mammary glands of a woman or a female giving nutrition to their child. Now, obviously, when we take milk, we want the calf out of the equation. That means one of two things. Yeah. The baby is either taken off, well, in both cases, the baby's stolen from its mother. But it's either taken off, raised to be a steer to impregnate other mamas, or it's turned into veal, or they are turned into veal, he or she. So this is pretty horrible. Beth, veal.
What's wrong with veal? Well, veal is, that soft, tender baby cow meat. Yeah. So the little cows are dragged away from their mother at 1 to 2 days old. This is totally cruel, this separation. The mum and the cow, baby cow, they want to bond. This can't happen. Mama bellows as her child's taken away. The child's then locked in what's called a veal crate for 16 weeks, and after 16 weeks is slaughtered for veal. In that crate, they have no exposure to sunlight at all. The crate's so small that the poor little baby, tied to a chain, can't even turn around because they don't want the baby cow moving at all, because that will strengthen all of the baby cow's muscles. And strong muscles don't make for tender meat. So, baby cows kept in crates, chained up, darkness, killed.
Veal would not exist if it wasn't for the dairy industry. The other way the calf can go is if they're female, they get dragged into the brutal system of the dairy industry.
Yeah, so if they're dragged into that system, there's a few painful little procedures they undergo before then living their life in the dairy industry. One of them is like dehorning. So they're branded with hot iron on their like immature little horn buds on their head, and so they're burnt really hard with a hot iron to stop them from growing, and that's because they don't want them growing horns because they're confined and they can hurt each other with them. All of this is done without any pain relief. Also, their tails are docked without pain relief, so they can't grow a tail, or they're just left with about an inch of a tail, simply because farmers don't want to be whacked in the face by a dirty pooey tail.
That's ridiculous.
And obviously it's pooey because they poo and they're in horrible conditions, never cleaned. So yeah, that's that.
Another reason, let's go intersectional. So the psychological stress for the mum. So they exploit the female reproductive system simply because the mama cow is female. They exploit them by forced sexual penetration and impregnation. They either use a big rod that they stick up the cow's vagina and impregnates them, or they get a steer to do it. Like either way, the mum doesn't really have much of a choice whether they get impregnated. Oh, they also
or a hand of a strange male farmer
up the butt. Google it. This is all true. But they're female, so they're exploited by their mammary systems. They exploit every single female attribute of the cow. And that's just not okay, just because they're seen as an inferior female.
Not only that, they're also pushed beyond their natural limits. So cows have been genetically engineered over the years to produce far more milk than they were ever meant to. They produce 45 to 50 litres per day in modern dairy farms, which is more than 10 times the amount of milk needed to feed a baby calf. Not only that, they're fed growth hormones, which are also present in the milk that you're drinking, if you drink milk. I hope you don't, because you're not a baby cow. And just due to these horrific lives, they don't live very long. They're slaughtered at up to 7 years old. They don't live any length beyond 7 years.
They're supposed to live to 25.
Their bodies are just completely worn out. Yeah, naturally they live up to 25 years, so that's horrible. And Louis might want to tell you more about the pushed beyond their natural limits and what this does to their udders and the milk you're drinking.
So most cows, or like a high percentage of cows, actually have mastitis of the breast, which is basically inflammation of the breast, and it seeps pus. So when the milker is on there, because they use electronic milking, of course, it's pumping away, and it pumps out the pus. So actually about 10% of the milk that you drink and all the dairy products is pus, which is white blood cells. It's called somatic cell count.
And not only that, the udders, because they're producing 10 times more milk than they're supposed to, they get extremely heavy, and the cows are susceptible to torn ligaments in their breasts, which is obviously extremely painful.
Let's talk environment. So animal agriculture is responsible for between 18 and 51% of all global greenhouse emissions. Dairy cows are a huge portion of this. So let's have a look at it. Let's have a look at water. Cow farts. Yeah, cow farts as well. They produce huge amounts of methane, which is 96 times more potent than carbon dioxide and warms the atmosphere like that much more. Yeah. Also, what do you think happens to their feces? A farm of 2,500 cows produces as much waste as a city of 411,000 people. But wait. None of it's treated. It's just dumped into a river, or it's sprayed in fields for the food you eat. Yeah, that's right.
Awesome.
That's pretty horrible. Let's have a look at water usage. It takes 400 litres per 100 grams of cheese. That's 4,000 litres per kilo of cheese. It takes 1,000 litres per litre of milk. 1,000 litres of water. The water usage, no way. Meat and dairy consume 29% of all the world's fresh water. Livestock covers 45% of the world's land. Wow, this is too much. 2.5 acres, no, sorry, 2 to 5 acres of land per cow is used. So there's huge amounts of acreage. And let's have a think about what the cow eats, because obviously they're going to eat something and they're going to drink things. So a cow drinks 120 litres of water a day and eats 40 kilos of food a day. How could that be redistributed to feed the world's hungry? Cut down the cows, cut down the number of starving people. No, they won't take over the world. If we stop breeding them, the population decreases.
Hey, and then we could stop chopping down all of our rainforests to grow feed to cows, rather than all the starving people in the world. What a good idea. Now let's go on to human health. So back to that pus we were talking about. That pus is responsible for increases in heart disease, just due to the really high levels of saturated fat and cholesterol found in dairy products. Also, from an evolutionary point, milk is just strange for humans. It was only 10,000 years ago that we started domesticating animals and farming them and stealing their milk. I mean, we've been around much longer than 10,000 years. Also, we're humans, we're not cows.
You're not a baby cow.
We can't stress that enough.
You're a baby cow. So
naturally, humans stop producing lactase between the ages of 2 and 5. And lactase is the enzyme needed to break down or properly metabolize lactose, the sugar found in milk. And yeah, we stop producing that between the ages of 2 and 5. So basically we become lactose intolerant, and I'm sure all of you know at least 20 or 30 people who are lactose intolerant, or who say they can't drink lactose because it upsets their stomach. It's one of the leading causes of irritable bowel syndrome, constipation, any other bowel problem. So yeah, it's just not crucial for good health at all. Calcium, your bones. You need calcium for your bones, right?
Yeah.
No.
No.
Well, actually, some of the most comprehensive studies or the most comprehensive studies into human nutrition ever conducted over the longest periods of time, 28, 30 years, have found that countries with the lowest consumption of dairy products have the lowest rates of bone fractures and osteoporosis. Similarly, countries like Western countries with the highest rates of consumption have like skyrocketing levels of bone fractures and osteoporosis.
Wow.
Not only that, but an increased consumption in milk increases the body's level of insulin-like growth factor 1. Big word, I know. This is just a known cancer promoter. So yeah, responsible for cancer as well. More on that is it's especially associated with cancers of the reproductive system. I mean, many studies have shown this. Like, look up the China study. Great book. This outlines it much more thoroughly than Louis or I are. We're not doctors, we're not scientists, but we're just sharing what we know with you in the best way we can. So this 28-year study found that, like, I'm just going to say prostate cancer, for example. The men in the study over 28 years who consumed the highest amounts of dairy were the most likely to suffer from prostate cancer, and likely men consuming the least likely to get prostate cancer. And that's the same if you look at these studies in relation to like female breast cancer or ovarian cancer. Anyway, the list goes on. What else have we got? Oh, one more which I thought was really interesting. I read this China study a few years ago, and I remember being surprised by it then. I'm surprised again by it today when I'm reminded of it. Early exposure to cow's milk in infancy is like correlates with type 1 diabetes, insulin-dependent diabetes. So children who are fed dairy as infants are more likely to suffer from type 1 diabetes.
Wow.
And obesity, and more susceptible to heart problems.
So, guess what you can replace it with?
What we just had. Coconut milk, cacao, hot chocolates.
Or almond milk, cashew milk, hazelnut milk,
Soy milk.
oat milk,
Rice milk.
all the milks,
So many milks.
all the fake
any
cheeses,
nut milk, any soy milk, any seed
all the
milk.
all the ice creams. You can get them all
Have
dairy
you tried
free.
Cocoa Luscious, all you Australians? I know it's expensive.
Have you
but
tried
it's
Booja
delicious.
Booja, all you English people?
Have you tried banana ice cream?
Banana. Just
Get-
watch our videos.
Get bananas, ripen them, freeze them, blend them. If you don't have a good blender, put them in the food processor. It actually makes for a better textured banana ice cream.
So like, share, subscribe. Let us know what you think down below in the comments. And don't forget to knowledge yourself up.
And stop drinking pus!
There is so much wrong with dairy.
I know, we didn't even cover it all.